you're coming to me because you want to make some forward progress. Do not come to me and want to have therapy sessions because
they have therapists.
There are people for that.
Yeah.
You come to me when you're like, I do not know why I cannot quit doing this thing. I do not know why I can't get free from this thing. I do not know why I can't lose 50 pounds. I do not know why I can't, I'm going to tell you. You might not like the answer abruptly, but I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to walk some steps out from wherever you are. It's called scaffolding. I don't expect people to be way over here when they're way over here. We assess where you are. We try a few things, and then we see what your functional capacity is, and that's where we start.
Welcome back to Spotlight with Britt, an inspirational podcast full of stories of perseverance, faith, and the ability to fail forward. You will hear stories of hope and happiness, downturns and defeat, but all in all, a positive look on things that we might not see as such beautiful spots of light in our life.
Open up my hands, you open up my eyes, I let go. All I am is yours.
Welcome back to Spotlight with Britt. Today, I have my friend Melissa Chwalinski, and if you looked at her name, tried to pronounce it, I guarantee you it would be wrong. But I'm very excited that you're here, and I'm so happy that you just were here and you hung with me through that insane setup. Nothing is ever perfect, but hopefully this
Absolutely
is as close
not.
to perfect as it's going to be. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I was laughing this morning. I was like, oh man, it feels good to be back in a studio. I used to do the Vine in the mornings way back when, back in 2022, I think, and got over nerves of being in a studio at all. And so I'm stoked. I'm happy. And excited to do this. So
Yeah, well, and you know what? That's crazy. That's crazy because I was there when the Vine started at THB, and then I was let go in January of 22.
Oh, that's right. That's what you were doing when you and I were meeting.
Yeah. So when you were there, I was not there.
Right.
And I was
came
doing
in.
this whole metamorphosis of things. So
Timing.
Tell me, God's timing is great. Tell me what you're doing now.
So, I'm back in Arkansas.
Thankfully.
So, thankfully for some, I did that kicking and screaming. God and I had a whole long conversation about that. I loved South Carolina. I loved Charleston. I loved the culture. I loved the diversity. I loved the church that we were at. Who doesn't love the beach? And so, that was wonderful. But then I loved my family, and that's who I was with. But after some big, massive transitions in my life that happened leading up to that time, God said, okay, it's time to go home. And I said, I don't want to go home. I don't want to talk about big challenges in life. Let's just go ahead and start right into that. It is so easy, so much easier to walk away from where you've been and where you came from, especially if there's failure attached to it. You know how connected I was socially and publicly networking when I was here before, and you also know that I've always lived my life holistically, authentically, openly, vulnerably, and transparently. I have chosen to live in a glass house for many, many years for a couple of reasons. One, if you set yourself in a glass house, you will self-regulate better. Two, you will get more comfortable with opposition and correction by default, because if you can't handle the heat, don't align your life to where you live in a glass house. Yeah. So I didn't really want to come back to Arkansas because I've lived a couple of lives here before and failed in a lot of those attempts. But I knew what I was being called to do. I knew how important it was. I knew how passionate I was about it. One of the quotes I live by is Howard Thurman's, don't ask what the world needs, ask yourself what you're passionate about, because what the world needs is people that are passionate about something. And I'm definitely passionate about serving and loving on people in need, but with specific needs, life skills support, people that are marginalized. The least of these, which was me my whole life.
Yeah.
So God said, it's time to go home. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, pack. It's time to go home. So I came home to then face all of the failures, all of the struggles, all of the shame that I felt. But that wasn't exactly what happened. What happened was I got back home and I was warmly received by the people, the right people, the people that my spirit was now aligned with, the people that lived and walked the way I aspired to live and walk. And it was a small group of people, but you don't need much when it's good quality.
Oh, yeah, definitely quality over quantity. I mean, that is, yes.
For sure.
And the fact that when you came back, you're like, I'm not ready to get out and meet and talk to and reintroduce myself to this world of networking. And I'm just like, well, I'm sorry you reconnected with me because I'm about to yank you out into it, okay?
Well, what was so funny about that, we had a real vulnerable conversation about that too. And I told you, I said, I don't want to stand in the face of all these people that have seen me do these other things and crash and burn. And one of the beautiful things, and stand here again and say, trust me again, believe in me again, back me again. And that's a testament to my inexperience and immaturity coming into this and my background and insecurities, because we all know, those that have done the self-development work and the professional development work, no, the statement is fail fast and fail often. Go ahead and mess up as much as you can mess up, as quick as you can mess up, because there's growth and learning in that. And I understand that now.
I always say fail forward. It's just, you hit a bump, okay,
Right.
but you have to keep going. You have
Right.
to start because it's not going to be perfect, and you have the opportunities to revise and redo and learn from those mistakes.
So if you grow up in critical environments or you have critical relationships, you don't, it's easy to come up, especially in the South, truth be told, and not get that, not have that space. People that grow up in more lower socioeconomic environments also, everything's counting on you not screwing up because it's going to be expensive if you do. So it is for a few people in our world that start out of the gate knowing it's okay if I mess up. I think a lot of the rest of us are told quite the opposite. So through a lot of my own choosing of self-development and growth and reading and studying, I came to understand that. And that equipped and empowered me to walk back into this particular city with this particular vocation. And what's really ironic is I'm coaching again, and there's a lot to be said when you know you've failed, and you've failed big, and you've failed often, and you've positioned yourself. God's called you to a position of educating, coming alongside, supporting, encouraging, and teaching and coaching. And so I had someone ask me a few months back, just a couple months ago, what my qualifications were. Old me would have clinched and been like, oh, I don't have any certified whatever, and I have a coaching certificate, but man, you can get those out of gumball machines at this point. So it's like, wow. But I didn't clinch. I paused and I said, my life is my qualification.
Absolutely.
And I immediately rolled back to, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called.
Yeah.
And I have such confidence, such extreme confidence in that, because as we were talking about a bit ago, I have my degree and I have my education, my academia, and I can tell you what things on paper say, but you don't know it. I've read a book recently by Chip Judd and Greg Surratt. Greg Surratt's founding pastor of Seacoast in Charleston. I will gladly plug him in this book. Chip Judd is their campus counselor. He's the pastor's counselor. It's called Focus Factor. And one of the things he talks about is gnosis and epinosis. It's one thing to educationally know something, and it's a whole nother thing to know it in your spirit and to have developed and gained the wisdom from walking it out. Those are totally different things. Mm-hmm. Totally different things. My qualifications are in what I know, what I have cried through, struggled through, walked through, stood through, risen up after, and on and on and on. That also equips me with a level of empathy, compassion, patience, and understanding that a lot of coaches or educators don't necessarily have.
Mm-hmm.
I am able to do a lot of shame breaking with people that struggle. I know how it feels to stay in bondage to self-inflicted shame. When the reality is, oftentimes, if we have a bad habit or a bad behavior, that's really just data. So I worked with a client back in the spring, and I do a lot of body doubling and even digital body doubling. So if you want to clean your house or whatever and you just can't do that on your own, then we can pop on a Zoom call and I will coach you through cleaning your house. It's coached body doubling, and that was what we were doing at that time. And one of the conversations was, my closet's always a mess. I can't get my shoes put up and this, that, and the other, and so it's always a bleed out and so on and so forth. Well, this person was neurodiverse. Well, neurodiverse is, we need the extra dopamine, and so it feels good to go buy something, right? And if it's on sale, it feels really good. And you
yeah.
And so,
yes, retail therapy.
right. And so the situation was, I'm so ashamed of myself because I can't keep my house clean. No. That's not the problem. The problem is you're dopamine deficient and you're using shopping as a way to feel good, and now you have more to manage than you can actually manage and organize. The problem is not you're a bad person. The problem is you need to figure out how to get dopamine in a healthier way that doesn't cost you extra money or add extra responsibilities and stress and tasks to you. So my approach to coaching is very much shame busting and just data driven. What's the data? What are the facts? What are just the tangible evidence that's going on? And then let's talk about for real, why. That is a step that I find most people don't take. We stay so busy and so caught up and so in our hustle culture and our little treat culture and all these things that we don't say, why? Why am I doing this? What hole am I trying to fill? What mindset or agreement have I made with myself about myself that I'm trying to overcome? What am I buying into in society that is not really effective or healthy for me? Hence the reason my coaching company is called Counterculture Coaching. I teach a pretty much opposite of what we're being fed is the way to do things now. It's not sustainable, it's not healthy, and that's being proven out over and over and over again if you look for that information and that data. So I help people find the why. I give people a safe space to self-discover and be honest and open with themselves about the why, because we can't really address and fix and improve anything if you're living in cognitive dissonance and you refuse to be honest with yourself about where you are and why you're there.
Sure.
And so I've walked all that. I've had to walk all that out, and fortunately have been blessed to walk all that out myself to a great degree, not perfectly. I will be growing for the rest of my life. But I understand the discomfort in that journey, and I love to come alongside people that are ready to lay it down and ready to submit to, no, I really want better for me, and I'm going to actively choose to self-parent and to love myself and respect myself and honor myself and cherish myself. Even though it's oftentimes more difficult and challenging, I'm going to choose to show up for me in the way I need to be shown up for. And then everything starts to elevate. Like your confidence, your capacity, your functional capacity, your health, everything. Once you get to that point that you're like, okay, I'm going to lay it down, and I know I've got some stuff, and I'm ready for somebody to walk through my stuff with me and coach me piece by piece. What one thing can I do tomorrow to start doing better at this? And it is a slow build. Habit stacking always seems kind of grueling in the first place. You do the thing you don't really want to do. You do it for about a week. That's not so bad. It's part of your muscle memory.
Sure.
Then you stack another thing on. You do that for a week or so. Then it's muscle memory. You do that for a month, and your spirit, your subconscious, your insides have started to pick up on the fact, oh, you do really love you. And it changes you. I cannot stress enough how so important it is to just take one little habit at a time, one little change at a time that's right, healthy, and good for you. I'm going to stop drinking coffee. I'm going to stop drinking Coke. I'm going to start walking for 30 minutes. I'm going to start looking in the mirror and saying, God, you're gorgeous. Look at you. You are absolutely gorgeous.
See, and so that, you've said so many things that I feel like I've covered in a different episode before, like especially just personal growth, not even professional.
Well, one leads to the other.
Right. But so on this level, what I've, with the podcast, I've talked to people that I've interviewed individuals that I've met networking in that professional environment, right? And so I've talked about, hey, we are all very judgmental of ourselves. And, as you alluded to, if you don't get out of your own way, you're going to be stuck in that endless cycle and that darkness. Because actually, this is so funny that we're having this conversation, because episode 1 of season 2, I talk about naturally as humans, we're inclined to go into the darkness and be reserved and go into that inactive spirit. But instead of that, even if you don't know what your purpose is for your life, hopefully that individual comes to find that. But you have to take that step of action of, okay, what is it that I'm beating myself up about? And like with you, I heard you've said multiple times talking about yourself and your past and everything is failure. We are our own worst enemy and our biggest critic. And while you will feel like, oh, I failed at this, and this was the negativity and this was all the different pessimistic features that came out of that experience, I think you have other people that could look at the journey that you took and the different steps that you took to better yourself after you tried to better those relationships or better those events or circumstances. And, there's a reason that everything happens.
So the reality is, where I am in my heart, and part of my level of confidence that I have now is because I do see it exactly that way. I do see my journey as a beautiful, highly beneficial, very valuable journey. I would not be me. Sometimes I sound a little arrogant. I really genuinely love myself and like myself and enjoy my own company. I'm comfortable and solid with who I am. I love my relationship with God, and that's my bestie.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to, because you can't love someone else until you love yourself. You can't.
Talk on that.
You can't make someone else happy if you're not happy yourself.
Amen.
You can't control what other people do, but you can control yourself. And that relationship between you and God, or if you don't believe in God, whatever that higher power is, right?
You're elevated.
Yeah. But until you are in that safe space mentally, physically, emotionally, you're not going to be able to take that next step, make that decision to get into that growth phase. You're not going to be able to really learn from past mistakes, because you're in this mindset of, this is where I am. I'm not going to get out of this. It's never going to change. This is just my endless cycle of life, and this is where I'm going to be until I die.
So self-love equates, in that particular aspect of it, self-acceptance and self-love equates to grace and mercy. But I'm going to tell you the other side of being able to love somebody, and why what you said a minute ago about action being so important, and piggybacking off of what I was talking about. When you actively choose to get up and do the right, healthy, and good thing for yourself, how do you think that transfers to when you're a parent, when you're a spouse, when you're a coworker, when you're a child taking care of, when you're an adult child taking care of an elder parent, when you pass somebody homeless on the street? If you will not discipline yourself to actually doing what is right, healthy, and good for you, you cannot show up in an important relationship in your life properly, because relationships and love is about your actionable effort, not what you feel like doing. I did not feel like staying up with my kids many a nights when they were puking up their toenails and I had to be at work in a few hours, but I did because I loved them. And in their adult life, I did not feel like going to my children and saying, I know some things now I didn't know then, and I failed you miserably, and I apologize. Now you have permission to tell me about myself. There is no experience as a mother and as an adult parent that I think you can sit through than sitting down with your kids and being honest and open with them and saying, I messed this up, guys. I got my education too late. I wasn't good to myself and for myself then, and a lot of that y'all paid for, and I'm sorry. And then because I love my children, I actively choose to ask for their forgiveness, and I actively choose to, whether I feel like it or not, show up in their life and serve them. My kids are grown, 28 to 23. I help my daughter every time she asks me to that I can, which I make the space to help my daughter with my grandson. My oldest son is playing softball in tournament teams. It's 4 hours away almost always. And he gives me 24 hours notice. I'll change everything on a Saturday to go sit in bleachers to watch my grown son play softball.
See,
because
that's one thing. I need to plan.
Because
you're showing
they
up for them.
deserve that.
Yeah.
There are so many adult parents now that are like, oh, well, I did the best I can. And my therapist and I talk about this often, and I did do the best I could. If I look at it and I review it over and over and over again, I did the best I could. And we were talking about this the other day. There's two sides to almost everything. I did the best I could, and it still negatively impacted their life. Both are true. So I don't have the right to say, if I love them, really love them, I don't have the right to say, I did the best I could, throw my hands up and say, now y'all are grown, figure it out, which is what my dad did to me. I have the responsibility, if I'm going to profess that I love them, to say I did the best I could and that failed you in a lot of ways, but I still love you and I'm here for you, and how can I walk this out for you, with you, for us to get to a healthier place? And it's possible. People misunderstand time and restoration and redemption.
Oh, totally.
It's not about, redemption and restoration is not about time or timing. It's about patience and consistency and effort and prayer and faith. Relationships can heal and fix and mend and completely turn around in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can string out for years and years and years in dysfunction.
Yeah, you have to be willing to forgive those past failures, and you have to be able to move forward and give that person grace, because whatever phase of their life they were in,
For however long.
Yeah, it's like, look, but you take that step to work on yourself.
Exactly.
Whether that's to speak to someone like you that's a coach, a life coach, whether that's to go and speak to a therapist. I've encouraged people many times in season 1 of go talk to somebody, because you can sit and talk to family or friends all day long, but they know you.
Talk to somebody with a more open perspective too, a little more wisdom and experience in life.
And because that person is an unbiased third party. They haven't lived and heard and felt those experiences that you've gone through. So they only know so much as what you tell them. But at the same time, if your intent is to be there and to grow and to hear how you could have done differently in a situation to have a better outcome, then you're not always going to get that honest and forthcoming opinion from a friend or family member, because they're going to be a little biased towards you.
There's a funny throwback in scripture to that. Our people that are close to us have known us always, and they can't help but see all that. An unbiased third party, or someone that's just recently met you and has a new fresh experience with you, has an experience with a new fresh you. they give you the space to lay down old you where other relationships don't. But Jesus went back to Nazareth, and that was the place he could do the least good. So oftentimes, one of the reasons it is so incredibly important to seek out fresh and new input. Caveat: you can do that and not tell them the whole truth, though, and get a skewed bit of information. So you've got to find somebody that you're willing to be raw, and I mean,
you have to be
really tell it.
Yeah.
Really tell it.
In your mind, though, you have to sit there and say, okay, I need to do this. This person doesn't know me from Adam, so you have to be as open and honest and forthcoming. Like
and you gotta be ready to say the hard things about yourself, and that's a whole process that you go through intrinsically on your own prior to.
And then learning the things that they're going to tell you, kind of like getting in the Bible. You start reading, and then there's going to be instances, things in your past that are going to resurface, and it's going to be a gut punch.
Right.
And you hear.
Oh, there's a lot of those.
Oh yeah, I mean, but always, the older you get, the more that there are. But it's like
the more gut punches you have, you can endure, and you can add alchemy to, the better human you become. Though.
Yeah.
The more of those you can take and integrate into yourself and come to terms with and own, and then confess and ask for forgiveness and atone for when it's healthy and appropriate. I've had the most massive growth I've ever had in my entire life in the last 2 years. And I was isolated, and I was in wilderness, and I told you the last time we were here, I have cried so hard with my face on the floor that I've sucked carpet fibers back up when I was breathing. I mean, I've had the most painful cry where you feel like your chest is literally caving in. And I had months of that, and I would have waves when it would be okay, and then I would have waves that all my feet and legs was back out from under me again. But I had day after day that I would sit in my prayer corner and I'd say, show me my heart, show me what's there, show me my mistakes. And I went through a really cool period of time, late 2022, I believe, like December, January-ish, that, we don't want to tell God our junk, which is hilarious because he knows
already knows it. Yeah.
So it's like, I've sat with that for a long time one day, and I was like, why? When the all-knowing God of the universe knows everything that has happened as well as everything that will happen, why am I so, I'll tell you before I'll tell God. And so I finally sat with that, and I was like, oh, wait, because that is my most vulnerable relationship. And that is the person that, if I'm being totally honest with myself, that's the being that I want to be my best for. And it's the most embarrassing when I have to sit at his feet and say, I fooled around a lot when I was younger.
Yeah, but you have to acknowledge that. You have to forgive yourself for things that you did in the past, whether it was hurt to you, whether it was hurt to someone else. Yeah. And like it says, I never let it go properly. I never addressed it properly until every time I would think something, I'd go to my prayer corner and I'd sit with God and I'd make myself confess it with my mouth. But I also never ever got free from anything that I thought I was forgiving myself for until I sat at his feet and said, this is the truth. This is the truth about me. And it was such a blessing and a release and a relief that I would have never, I've heard people preach about and talk about, but I would have never experienced. I would have never had the experiential knowledge and feeling of that if I hadn't actively chose to take that step and go ahead and do that, and then be blessed with the lightness and the lifting of all that later. And that also changed a lot about who I am now in my walk now. I spent years saying I was asking for forgiveness and confessing, but I never was really letting it go. I still carried so much shame and so much heaviness on me, and until I developed a new active practice in that. And that's a good thing to lead into. I coach differently than most coaches. We say I'm kind of an anomaly, so there's not really a good label for me. We're working on that.
I'm not a fitness coach. I'm not a success coach. I'm not a health coach. I'm not these little niche coaching things. I'm a life coach, but I'm also not. What I really am is a life skills coach.
Right.
So I've told people for the last year, I'm like, take life coach meets offensive line coach, because we're about to make some gains. And we're gonna start moving forward straight away. This is not a sit and have conversations, open-ended conversations for you to self-discover. That's not my jam and my game at all. And there's a little bit of learning and practicing that goes on there. But because I'm a life skills coach, I coach on 7 foundational areas.
I figured you would lead into it, but
that just worked out. We're talking about God, so I said, well, we got to talk about the rest of it.
Coming that way, yeah.
So, whatever your spirituality is, I'm open to, and I'm steadily learning, constantly learning about other people's religions and their practices, so that I can be respectful, mindful, and guide them within what's important to them, regardless of my beliefs. Each individual person's spirituality is important, and I'm going to tell you what spirituality really comes down to more than anything is character development. So when I teach on spiritual health, I'm really teaching a lot on character development. I'm working on a workbook for that. And so, reworking a workbook I'd already built for that. So after your spiritual health is your mental health, because we know, as we've learned and grown and done the self-development, until you get your mind right, until you really can wrap your head around the what and the why, nothing else will follow suit. It starts in your brain. And your brain can override your feelings once you get your brain right. Once you've fed your mind and you've gained the intellect to know, no, I'm feeling this way because I'm having cravings for something, and that's just a bunch of chemical stuff. That's not real. That's something I can override. Let's get the mind right first. So spiritual, mental, then physical. And the journey I went on that I speak so much about now, and it's such a passion for me, is that, I lost 100 pounds last year. And
yeah, you did.
And I got tickled. I forgot that you hadn't really seen pictures and stuff of me. And when you saw me the first time, you were like,
I was like,
who are you?
Who are you?
So,
oh my gosh, yeah, totally a new person.
I'm back to old me. I've lost a little bit of muscle tone, but I'm gonna get that back shortly.
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time, that's right. I had to go on a whole walk with my body and my temple. And I used to laugh at people that talked about temple care. Let me tell you, this is my temple. And I am very intentional and mindful about what I put in it. And the people that are around me that eat will tell you how quick I get real pissy when you want me to do something different. No, I'm not putting any of that in me. It messes with me. So your physical health, and there's a lot to that. It's not just your food. It's, there's a lot to your physical health, your environment. There's a lot that goes into your physical health. So spiritual, mental, physical, relational. Spiritual, physical, Jesus. Spiritual, mental, physical, emotional. Emotional management, emotional well-being becomes so easy to deal with when you've got the first 3 lined out. We talk so much about our emotions and our emotional well-being. We say mental well-being, but what we really mean is emotional well-being. That's such a big topic of conversation now. There's so much emphasis put on that.
Yeah.
What I've learned through experience is if you get those first 3 jiving and going really well, you have much less issue in your emotional well-being and your mental health overall. I mean, it just, that whole topic shrinks so much. It's there, and there's things you have to work through, but it becomes much more manageable after you've got those others in place.
Absolutely.
And so after your emotional health, we then work on relational health. Well, guess what else becomes a lot easier to deal with?
Once you've taken care of you.
That's right. And so then you know how to show up in relationships properly, whether it be your grown adult parents, or it be people that you go to church with, or it be your networking relationships, or it be your own children, your grown children, or your little children. My first degree was early childhood education and development, and so I've got so much parenting content that admittedly I did not learn early enough and did not practice well fast enough, but I'm better with my grandkids. And so I do talk on and teach a lot about healthier parenting. Then after relationships is your financial health, which a lot comes down to, that's really where some counterculture stuff starts to kick in. You know, we've got so much inundated garbage that we're supposed to do, and the keeping up with the Joneses and what's cool and, you know, what's healthy and happy and all that. And the vast majority of it is a death sentence. So we talk about getting your finances online, which is another practice of self-love. It's another really good action place of self-love.
Because then once you have decided, okay, these things are bad for me, then you're not
You'll
putting
stop
that
doing
money
it.
out
That's
there,
right.
and you're able to invest at other places.
That's right.
Whether that be at your church, whether that be within your family, whether that's just with you because you have a gym membership now and you go and you
Pay
work
for
out.
the things that you need for
Yeah.
yourself. Yes. And then finally is vocational. And that really sets a lot of people on their ear. And I have the most struggle with men that I coach with this one, because men are providers and they're work oriented and whatnot. And so I need to explain the difference between vocation and work for starters. Your vocation is that thing in you that you were meant to do, that thing you were made to do.
Yeah, your purpose.
It is not, there's all these words that are around that. It's not your career, it's not your job, it's not a lot of it. It can be. My vocation and my career and my job are all the same now, but I broke away from a lot of other jobs that weren't really my work, my vocation, what I was called to do. When you find your vocation, your work, your calling, you will never actually work another day in your life. You may be tired, as I admitted, I was up till 2 o'clock this morning working on some stuff, but you will likely never retire, but you will never need to retire. What I do every day is fuel and food for my life and my soul.
And the fact that you're able to bless someone else through your experiences and educate them on those those 7 different pillars.
Right.
And I mean, the financial thing, I mean, I know that's 6 of 7, but geez, I was literally just having a conversation the other day with somebody and regularly about people just they don't know.
Well, honey, nobody's being taught.
Right.
So this is something I've mentioned to you before. One of my big soapboxes is how our civilization has changed post-industrial revolution. And so we moved away from, when we moved out of agrarian renaissance, moved away from agrarian lifestyles, more rural living, farming, self-sufficiency, so on and so forth. That's a whole nother thing. When we went into the city and we went into the factory and we went into opportunity, we didn't take with us the healthy practices that made living functional. We didn't integrate where we came from with where we went to. Then over a period of time, everything got so challenging and both parents had to work. Well, over time, we got told what we needed instead of knowing what we didn't need. And we decided we needed a massive McMansion house and a $80,000 car, and the kids needed to play 16 sports and all these things.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
not a need.
that's the truth of what. And that's not my opinion. Like there's data and historical data and documentation, the psychology of marketing and sales. Like that's an agenda that's going on in our world that we've not educated ourselves against and therefore acted accordingly. So now we've got 2 parents working and grandparents are still working and families are broken up and discombobulated. And so actual training up isn't happening. Parenting isn't happening. I have taught 22-year-olds how to load a dishwasher, how to properly clean, how to grocery shop, how to source, how to cook, how to, you name it, that's a life skill. Like how to empty vacuum cleaner filters and clean those properly. Like, and I've had a lot of people say, well, you life skills coach. It's got to, well, used to at my company was Adulting Simply. And so a lot of people would say, oh, well, it's adulting, it's got to be young adults. The first person I trained on budgeting was 67 years old and was now on Social Security and fixed income, and they had no idea how to live within a budget. My first situation that I coached finances specifically. So no, I'm not just teaching emerging adults, although I love to get them. Love. At some point in time, my long-term goal and intentions are to open a school that's a gap year program, but I would like to actually start in 11th grade training up, have a 4-year program that from 11th grade through to be 11th, 12th, college one, freshman, sophomore, there would be a 4-year program that they would learn all the skills they needed to learn to functionally work in life. And when they graduated my program, they would have they would be socialpreneurs. They would have a nonprofit in place, running, functional, and both serving and making an income as a nonprofit entity, as a socialpreneur, that they would find their vocation, that by sophomore, essentially equivalent to sophomore year in college, they would know how they wanted to contribute in life in some way. They might not stay that way, but they would have a passion that they found and a place that they wanted to meet a need in, and they were set up and actively doing that by the end of my 4-year program. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen, but that will happen.
Well, you just mentioned service, right?
Yes.
So the last thing that we talk about is a nonprofit, and I know you have yours. You have many
We're
that
working
your
on
hands
that.
are
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yes. But what's one that maybe people aren't familiar with that would give them an opportunity to give back and do things to help others? Obviously, helping others in turn, that fuels them to do more and kind of develop that happiness emotionally, mentally, all that stuff.
Well, that's a great question. I was just recently asked to join the board of a nonprofit called WellFed, and that is here local in Arkansas. And the minute I heard Josh speak briefly at a networking engagement about what his mission was, it aligned so perfectly with mine. They are a food insecurity focused nonprofit, but they're doing it a little differently than what we typically have. Usually people that are food insecure get food boxes or whatever from wherever. And let's just be honest, it's not the healthiest food. It's shelf stable, it's processed, it is what it is. And they're handed that, and then if they ask for anything different or more, our culture shuns that and looks down on, well, you should be happy that you're getting whatever handout. There's so much stripping of dignity for people that are food insecure. Well, what we just talked about a moment ago is what you put in your body 1,000% affects your functional capacity.
Sure.
So you stand here and you say, be happy with all that processed food and all that sugar-laden and chemical garbage. Be grateful and happy to put that in your body. And then, why are you not doing any better in your situation? Really?
Yeah.
Really. And this is what I'm talking about with the disconnects with why we're not having enough conversations that are looking at a whole bigger picture. So WellFed does, first of all, they source from local farmers. They have grant money to do that. And their food boxes do have the produce in them. And they work to also educate people with how to use and to cook with those items.
I love that.
Yeah, how to have a healthy meal. And so they're really moving towards kind of what's called a food RX position.
Okay.
So you use food to not only fuel your body and energize your body, but also to heal your body. And
That makes sense.
I know I'll have my own food and farming initiatives coming in the future, but I was so blessed and honored to be asked to participate on that board, because I'm going to love backing somebody and pouring into somebody that has the same heart and the same understanding of what I spent all of 2023 knowing, deeply, intimately learning and knowing through experience was so very important. Both there's been numerous times in my life where I was the person in need, and then to come to a place in my life where I understood how important what I was putting in my body was. And I've passed so many homeless people that'll have, just an array of fast food bags that people will just drive through and get them something. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Because it's convenient, because
Yeah.
they want to help, and they might not have something readily available.
Right.
I've heard about a guy that he actually keeps packs of healthy foods ready.
so I
in
keep
his
baby food
vehicle.
packs. Yeah. I keep them for myself. I keep anything that I will eat it myself, I keep in my backpack, and that's what I offer to people that have food need on the street. And so whatever quality, that's another thing, whatever quality that's dignity. Whatever quality I will consume for me, I will share with them. Because I can't reconcile with going and picking up something and handing to them that I wouldn't put in my own body. I just can't get right about that in my spirit. So I keep plenty of both fruit and veggie organic baby food packs in my backpack and meat sticks. And one particular post office that I use all the time, there's almost always somebody there. And I don't carry cash, I just don't. But I say, but I've got snacks, and sometimes I'll have some cookies or whatever, and that's that. But I hate to really base a whole lot of life around food, but I just learned this last year that, man, that tool that we have has been so twisted and warped and tainted over the years, and it's so vitally important for our overall well-being.
Yeah.
If you fuel yourself well, you can change people's circumstances and situations because it's changing their mind, it's changing their health, it's changing everything. So I'm throwing in with well-fed for the foreseeable future, and seeing if I can contribute to the education component with some fun, different recipes and things like that, and just getting the word out about them. Send them all the money you've got.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. It's like, again, comes back to being intentional, right? You have to have that nourishment, and I think because we all have such busy lifestyles, for the most part, we tend to gravitate toward that what's quick and easy,
Sure.
right? But if you have someone like WellFed that has a source, an educational piece that can say, hey, this is actually something you can do that's quick, easy, and healthy.
Sure.
And those people that respond to that obviously have that desire to do better for themselves, to be healthier. I mean, we're in Arkansas, and obesity rate is out the roof, and
Well, a lot of times it's really just the not knowing. It goes back to, like I said, we're not parented and trained on that. I spent a year re-educating how to eat. I spent a year learning how do I cook this now? I do no gluten, no dairy, no refined sugar. How do I make mac and cheese with no gluten and no dairy? There is a way, and it's good. It took me a year to figure all that out, though. So, there's plenty that we just don't know. There's a lot of people that just simply would do better if they knew better, and that's my heart. I love to help people know how to do better. That's what I eat, sleep, live, and breathe for, truthfully.
Well, how can people find you? What's the best
All the socials.
method of connection for Melissa?
The best, fastest, and easiest is just my Facebook page. It's Melissa Chwalinski Gordon. I think if you do @counterculture coach, that pulls me pretty quick. One of these days, I will have a wonderful team, and they will do all my social media, and I'll have Instagram, and I'll have all the things, and that's just not real right now. So Facebook, I do have a website. It's www.melissachwalinski-gordon.com. The app is coming. The app is days away from, you'll be able to put links to it when you launch this.
I was gonna say, by the time this goes out, then it will be live.
Right. It will be live. Yeah. So the best way that you can engage with me, the most affordable way. I do still do one-to-one coaching, but I'm very limited in the amount of hours that I can spend with people one-on-one. And so what I worked on for the last several months is my reach. How can I reach and touch and impact and empower and equip a larger amount of people, which I'm fully aware is oftentimes the people that have the least resources to employ or get a coach or that extra support help. So I've launched a virtual group coaching app. It will be on Google Play Store. It's on Apple iTunes. It's called Counterculture Community. And it is $24.99 a month for 1 to 2 hour, and I say 1 to 2 hour because obviously I'm a long talker. Anywhere, it's going to be at least an hour, but sessions could go up to 2 hours. All of it's recorded. You're welcome to join them live And we are just going to talk. We're going to talk about what your struggles are, what your issues are. Whoever shows up in the chats and is there live will get their questions, as many as I possibly can, will get their questions addressed. I will keep a bank of conversation topics to just speak on and teach on. It's $500 worth of coaching for $24.99 a month. You have access to the recorded conversations anytime. If you can't be live, but you just want to glean from the information, hop on any given Tuesday at lunch and see it and record it. Every time I get probably 30 in a room, I'll cap that one and open a new room on a different day. So eventually there'll probably be 3 evenings a week that you can hop on live. So there'll be some flexibility there. But I couldn't be more grateful for the inspiration to do that. Grateful for the platforms available to launch that on, and grateful for a way to serve a massive amount of people in a way that they can engage with, they can affordably engage with, and really help themselves get to where they want to be in life. We're gonna have some raw and real conversations, I'm gonna tell you that right now. So like, if you're sensitive and delicate, it's probably not my app. That's probably not for you. But if you're tired of masking and you're tired of hiding behind things and you're tired of self-sabotaging and you're tired of struggling, go ahead and get on the app. Do yourself a favor. You're gonna spend more than $24.99 on one dinner out a lot of times. So
Absolutely.
just go ahead and subscribe to the app and change your life. Change your life. So I can't wait.
I can't wait to have you back again.
Okay.
That way you can tell us about how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is there anything else that you need to share?
No, I think we did it.
Okay.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So, whatever time of day it is, I hope that it is blessed for you when you are listening to this podcast. If you have any questions, you can post in the comments. You can reach out to us on social media. And until next time, have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you later.